Hello and welcome everyone. I am your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, someone who's interested in what's happening here on the planet. And we've had 3 major volcanic eruptions in the past 3 days. The first one at Mayon Volcano there on the 5th. This is the most active volcano effectively in the Philippines. So activity here doesn't necessarily come as a surprise, but we've been having a lot of pyroclastic flow activity, and some of these eruptions, explosions, ash clouds have been getting much larger than normal. So I released a video on that back on the 5th on my Clips channel. Perhaps you saw that. Well, just about 24 hours ago now, Mount Dukono in Indonesia, which is arguably its most active volcano or second most active volcano. It's right there competing for the top spot. It had a huge eruption just today, May 8th their time, that sent an ash cloud up to the bottom of the stratosphere, which is about 35,000 feet up or 11,000 meters. Really incredible stuff. We can see that right here. Here's the eruption at Mount Dukono just in the past 24 hours. We've also just had an eruption from Sakurajima, which is Japan's currently most active volcano. So that's the thing. Eruptions from the most active volcanoes on an island or continent or whatever aren't necessarily surprising or unexpected to people who live there or for people that study this stuff, but each of these eruptions has been the biggest in a long time, like at least in a notable time frame, and they're all happening within 3 days of each other. We can look at Sakurajima, and this is a huge volcanic eruption. Now this ash cloud went up 3,500 meters. But one reason why it didn't go up higher is because there's been very strong winds over Japan. So we can see that clearly with this time lapse, with this webcam. See the movement of the clouds? Very, very quick. And look how the ash cloud is being dragged along with it. So big eruption from Sakurajima in Japan just in the past few hours. Really, I think this is like 4 or 5 hours ago maximum. And let me show you that activity from Mayon Volcano on the 5th. We also have activity today, new pyroclastic flows that race down the slopes on the 8th. So Mayon Volcano is still very, very active, and all 3 of these are connected together geologically. They're all in Southeast Asia, but the Philippine sea plate connects them all together. So we are going to discuss in today's live stream a lot of things. There's a lot to cover. We'll do a question and answer, maybe even do a sound healing at the end. I think it's going to be a longer live stream. So at the beginning, we'll kind of go over everything, but then we'll expand into detail with all these different subjects. So don't worry, we're going to get everything. And if you have a question, then you can ask it at any time if it's attached to a super thanks, and I will get to that. I have a separate list that populates all those super thanks questions, or during the Q&A, you can ask in the general chat, and I'll do my best to get to you. But 3 big volcanoes from across the Philippines sea plate. And this is a very interesting area geologically. And so it's making me think that there are some more significant deep earth changes that are unfolding at this moment in time that could be indicating that a larger shift of some sort is soon to occur or will occur in the near future. Because geology operates on geologic time, so it may not just be 1, 2, 3 eruptions, we get the shift. It could be, hey, these volcanoes here and some others are just going to display increased activity overall for 5 years, perhaps, before a really big Earth shift occurs. These are all completely plausible scenarios, so I don't know which one it is, but we are seeing signs that there is more energy coming up from the upper mantle expressing itself at the crust via these volcanic systems, because that's what it is. You have this surge of magma and energy from the deep parts of the earth. Keep in mind that not everything is solid on Earth. We live on a solid crust, but the moment you start to get down, things get hot, things get malleable, the viscosity starts to increase, and in general, it's kind of almost liquid down there. So if you do have these changes occurring at depth, and you get this volcanic activity as an expression of that, then this could be indicating that you're going to have a larger plate movement because, well, these plates are subducting down into the mantle. And fundamentally, it's the subduction of the Philippine Sea Plate underneath here, the Eurasian Plate, that has created this whole volcanic chain, the Ring of Fire in general. So that is quite significant. That's what we're going to talk about. You'll notice here that there's actually a double layering. You have the oceanic crust subducting underneath the Philippine Sea Plate, which is subducting underneath Eurasia. So you have multiple layers here. And what we found through geologic investigations in many parts of the globe, but we'll look here at North America, for example, is that these subducted plates can continue to move underneath the main plate that is subducted underneath for quite some time in lateral extent. So they don't necessarily always go straight down. Now, a location where a subducted plate goes straight down is out here around Fiji, Samoa, Tonga. We have seismic data showing effectively this plate just going straight down eventually. But that's not always the case. In North America, for example, we have the Cocos Plate, which is roughly here. You can kind of see it. That's the Cocos Plate. It's a microplate. And then you have the Juan de Fuca Plate right here. And that's another microplate. Turns out they're actually connected together. They're both once part of the Farallon Plate. An entire Farallon Plate is now underneath the North American continent. And so it's subducting down like this. And there's different ideas as to how it's subducting. There's one idea proposed of like horizontal subduction. So once it was underneath the North American plate, it kind of actually leveled off. Other ideas are basically suggesting that it's going more at an angle and then almost vertically. But we see ancient subducted slabs under different parts of North America, other parts of the world. It's very dynamic. And to get a big earth shift, like the biggest sort of earthquakes, for example, requires a big block. If you study into plate tectonics and now the most recent research and data and everything, it's all about finding specific blocks that exist, these coherent units that move as a whole. And one way you can identify these blocks at a very finely detailed level is by using GNSS, which is GPS, global positioning. You put up global positioning sensors all across these different places and you measure the movement relative to the global position across time. And so some areas have higher velocities than others. And if you get enough of these GPS positions, you can actually look to see clusters of velocities. So across multiple stations, are they all kind of moving coherently in sync? That indicates a block. So that area is more likely to be structurally intact and as a result, move as one. And when you get a big block to move, that generates a big earthquake. Good example of this. Let's just zoom back here because I know the seismicity of California pretty well. You have 1906, magnitude 7.9 is the estimate for the San Francisco earthquake, right? You had rupture of the San Andreas all the way from San Francisco up to Eureka, to the triple point, and also going to the south. So the shaking up in Eureka was basically just as intense as it was in San Francisco, even though the epicenter was right off the coast. So that's a massive movement of the Pacific plate past the North American plate with this right transverse strike slip, right? So this is going up, this one's going down. This is going to the right effectively. If you look at it from this perspective, that's also moving to the right. So it's a right transverse strike slip fault. So that's a big, big movement, as you can see. I mean, let's just measure this really quick. This is one location on the globe. There's many places like this. Let's just measure down to Santa Cruz, Monterey. It's 500 kilometers. So it's like 370 feet, something like that. It's a lot. So you can have, and that's a magnitude 7.9. Well, imagine if we get some big shift of the Philippine Sea Plate all effectively together at once underneath the subduction arc. That could be a really big earthquake. That could be a really big earthquake. Now, you may not get an entire rupture. There's probably multiple coherent block units within this, but still, you could get really large magnitude 8, magnitude 8.5. I'm sure magnitude 9 earthquakes or greater are possible within this region. If we zoom over a little bit here to South America, check out this subduction zone. You have the Andes. We had a magnitude 9.5 here, 1960. Some estimates are actually a little bit higher than 9.5. We don't really know the upper bound for that, but in general consensus right now is 9.5. Take that for what it's worth. So you had a massive rupture along a huge portion of this fault there. And if you study into big earthquakes, the biggest ones come from the kinks in these faults. So it's not during these straightaway sections. Yeah, you can get big earthquakes there too. But the biggest come from where there is this unique dynamic where it's not just simple linear system, you add this complexity to it. How does the stress effectively manifest and the strain manifests as the fault goes here, but then it also bends and it's continuing to subduct there? That is where you get this unusual stress and strain accumulation, and that's where you get the biggest earthquakes. There's this natural geometry to the plates that stop them from easily subducting, and it takes a big event to loosen everything and shift it. And that can be a 5-meter shift. It can be a 8-meter, 10-meter shift. Like the rupture for a really big magnitude 8.5 or 9, for example, can be really big, like significant movement. This can be uplift, downlift, subsidence, right? You can get huge, huge changes in the topography. For the California and a strike slip fault, it can be, you know, all of a sudden, if you have a fence line crossing the San Andreas, the left side of the fence will be, let's say, 8 meters up now compared to the right side of the fence. Huge, huge shift from, like, let's say a magnitude 8.2. So it seems to me that we are looking at something happening here because of this activity that we've been seeing. We've been having big activity in Japan. We go back to 2011, we had the magnitude 9.1. Just recently, we've had multiple magnitude 6 and 7 earthquakes. We had a 7.6 and a 7.5 just in the past 6 months. A lot of 6 earthquakes and etc. In this region, just north of that 9.1 epicenter, we had the magnitude 8.8 megaquake up there, right? So that ruptured a significant section of this fault. So if you're looking at it, we had a big rupture of this fault 2011, significant rupture of this fault in 2025, plus aftershocks. We've been having now activity here causing some stress release there, but we haven't had a big movement in this area for some time. Back in the year 2004, we had a magnitude 9 strike in this area. Right? So that was hugely destructive in terms of the tsunami. The shaking was bad as well, but we had big movement there as well. We also had a deep magnitude 7.1 earthquake, Malaysia, back I think just about 2 months ago now. Anomalously deep in an area where there haven't been deep earthquakes. It was like 400 or 600 kilometers down, really, really deep. I think it was 600 kilometers down. Really, really deep. If you look up, and we've done this before on the channel, when you look up the historic data, there's all these earthquakes around the perimeter side, but right there, it's the only one that shows up. So that's showing some big movement adjacent to the Philippine sea plate. And if you remember what I was saying about kinks, right? Well, look at this. This is not nice and uniform. This is all types of kind of rugged and non-homogeneous, inhomogeneous. You have right here specifically Taiwan forming this big choke point. Then you go down there to upper Philippines. You get big earthquakes with Taiwan, but it almost looks like a manta ray. Just as a side note, this looks like a big manta ray swimming. I've just seen that right now, which is pretty cool. But this is effectively one big kink point. So the whole thing could move. We had some big magnitude 7 earthquake activity in the Philippines past 6 months. So I don't know when this is going to occur. If it's going to occur, we are in the realm of geologic speculation at this point because, well, the Earth is very complex and I don't know everything. And I hope that this increase in volcanic activity for these three volcanoes is kind of it. It was just a random coincidental burst, but you have 3 in a row in 3 days from the 3 most active volcanoes, and every single eruption for them, for all 3, were much bigger than normal. Tells you something. At least that's what I think. So hello, welcome everyone. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, your cosmic bro, here to help you understand what is happening on the planet. And before we get further into it, I would like to let you know, or maybe remind you if you're already aware, that I'm hosting my first ever in-person event in San Diego this May 16th. It's going to be 150 people. We're super excited for this. It's not just me. It's also Dana Kipple. You may know her. She's the Plasma Girl. She's on Instagram. I'll put a link to her in the video description so you can check out her work. She's also on YouTube and stuff. She's been on a bunch of podcasts. We've done a podcast together. And also my friend Kimberly Wise. We have 5 guest speakers who are going to be speaking about a variety of topics like guided meditation. There's going to be Qigong. We're going to have a social hour, a big bonfire at sunset. And as the night continues on, we'll be out there playing drums and just having fun. But really, this is a community building event. So if you are in the Southern California area, or you're willing to make a bit of a trip, and maybe you want to take a quick vacay to San Diego for a weekend, you can do so. This is going to be a day to remember though. Like, we've been planning this really precisely and beautifully, kind of last minute, but Spirit is calling us to do this. So this is our Conscious Connections in-person event. And if you've been ever wanting to talk to people who are into these topics, like we discuss on the channel, this is your place. Because I can kind of open up conversations with anybody, and I sometimes talk about the things I discuss on my channel, but and people, they'll be interested, but I can't really go that in depth because it may not be their natural interest. They're like, oh, that's kind of a curiosity for me. But if you want to talk to people who are super into this and meet them and start to form those connections, this is the event to go to. Because the whole purpose of this event is to build community, and community really is the way of the future. I had this dream a few weeks ago that was so profound that basically the message was community, community, community. I immediately started prepping and planning this event afterwards. So it is happening, it's manifesting. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be a really intimate gathering with a lot of people who are either creating something of their own, like they're conscious creators, you could say, or they're just free thinkers, visionaries. We already have quite a few signups, but the tickets are selling out. So if you want to make sure you get in, you should probably pick it up sooner rather than later. This is my webpage for it, and I'll link this in the video description, but you can just go to earthevolution.com. I can even show you right here really quick. earthevolution.com, and then go to the store. The tab right there is for the store. And then you'll see at the bottom right here, the Conscious Connections in-person event. You click that, and all the information is here. If you buy a ticket, or 2 or 3 tickets, let's say you have multiple friends that are going, I will send you the location via email afterwards. It's from 2 to 9 p.m. So basically a full day plan for us to do amazing things. And Dana and I will have an in-person Q&A. So we'll have some tiny little presentations, but we're mainly going to be focused on doing a question and answer with the audience, with all of you. And the goal really, again, is to be less of a just sit there and kind of watch us present. Like, I'm giving presentations every day, folks. This is a time for us to connect together at the heart level and to see where that goes. And I think there's going to be some life-changing relationships that form as a result of this event. We have it coinciding with the new moon. It's a really incredible energy. There is a 15% discount at the hotel where the event is occurring, so you can get that if you sign up. They have plenty of spots out here at this moment in time, and it's really going to be something special. So we love to host you and to meet you in person. If you've ever wanted to meet, you love this stuff, you want to really integrate into this community even more, then this is the event to go to, and it really makes sense to do it if you are in Southern California. It's an easy drive for people in LA or anywhere close to San Diego, even let's say, for example, like Las Vegas, or maybe Arizona. These are all possibilities. So looking forward to seeing you all there. The vibes are going to be incredible. We're just getting so much positive energy around this. And one of my things too, if I really speak about like some guidance I've been given from Spirit, is that it's all about inspiration right now. I want to be inspired, and I want to be inspiring others. So this event not only is there for us to form community, but it's also for us to inspire each other with new things that we're learning, that we're doing, how we can collaborate in ways that not only kind of add our efforts together, but actually amplify them, like they multiply them. So really incredible. It's $195.95 per ticket, and that can be picked up at earthevolution.com. And this is actually a really good deal compared to a lot of these in-person events that charge a lot more, but this is our first one ever, so we wanted to effectively offer it at a very fair price for what we're getting. We're going to do some Qigong, a little bit of meditation, the bonfire, guest speakers. It's going to be such a mind and heart expanding and spiritually expanding event that we're all really excited for it. So if you're attending, please put a comment in the video chat area so others can see. It'd be great to see who else is attending. And if either of our tickets are sold out, for example, I have 75 tickets, Dana has 75 tickets. So if you can't get one through a ticket through one of us, just go to the other person's store and hopefully there'll be tickets, but this will be selling out. We're selling pretty quick. It's going to be sold out sooner rather than later. I wouldn't wait till next week to buy a ticket. I would pick it up today through the weekend at a, like, definitely, if you're feeling called to this, that's what I would do. So thank you for that, your consideration. I'm super excited to see you all. It's going to be fantastic. There have been so many little things, like I feel like God has been smiling on me over the past few days. Some really incredible things have happened, and just like the energy has been so good. If you watch Harry Potter, there's that liquid luck that Harry takes at one point. It's like you have the best day ever if you drink the liquid luck. That's what it feels like the past 48 hours. And I think that's going to continue going all the way through the event because we're in right now this lunar phase. Now, before we get back to the report on the volcanoes and go more in detail and talk about possibilities of this big Earth shift, I just want to let you know that we are finally seeing a pretty big change in the Schumann resonances. Now, I don't know precisely what this is, but it's worth noting. We've had this weird energy grid. That's what I've been calling it, like a grid. And I don't know if this is electropollution or smog local to Tomsk, Russia, where we observed this data. This is a publicly accessible Schumann resonances observatory and geophysical observatory hosted in Tomsk, Russia. And I can show you where that is really quick, so you're not maybe completely lost. Tomsk, Russia is up here in between Mongolia and Kazakhstan. So see Tomsk right there. So it's a really interesting location because it's actually fairly high latitude. If you look here, you'll see that it's close to 60 degrees north. It's about 57, let's say, degrees north, Tomsk, which is pretty up there. It's definitely higher latitude than lower latitude, which allows it to collect a bunch of interesting, sometimes unique electromagnetic signals that show up in the background vertical electric field, which is the part of the electromagnetic field that we connect to in a very, very deep way. We evolved in these fields for billions of years. That's our current best understanding. This electrical grid, I'm not sure if it's electrosmog from like the grid in that location, like the power grid, or whether this is some data artifact, but it's been on the spectrogram now for at least, I think, a month and a half, 2 months even. It's been a long time. And it had this really strong transmission line right about 25 hertz. And that's pretty odd. And you see that it has almost like this 1 hertz spacing. It's like this perfect 1 hertz spacing. And I think this is some sort of electrosmog or pollution. We haven't been picking this up on some of the other public observatories, but we have out of Tomsk. That's finally come to an end. Something changed, and now we're back to just normal background Schumann resonances. Praise the good Lord. We do have this power line harmonic that's always there at 20 hertz. You'll see that. There's always a little bit of residual energy bleeding off that 50 hertz power grid signal in Europe. So that is still there, but this weird artificial grid is gone. Now again, I'm not sure if that's from the data processing that's required to amplify this signal, but it wasn't there before. It's only been there 2 months. It's almost like someone turned something on, then turned it back off. And because these overlap with our brain waves, our heart rhythms, and our biofield resonances and more, when you start to play around with these energy fields, it can make a big difference in how you kind of feel, maybe even how you think. So it's not good to have these sort of like grids, you could say, artificial grids. They've been doing, if you research into this, they've been doing electromagnetic manipulation of these background fields going back to basically like the 50s, 60s, 70s. There's a whole, and you can research into like Havana syndrome. There's a lot of nonsense that's being done with the background electromagnetic field that we connect to, again, with our brain waves, our heart rhythms, and even in some of these covert programs in an attempt to control how we think or influence it. Like, that's not a conspiracy. Like, it's all been done. So I don't know. Again, that's why I'm happy to see this is gone, and hopefully it stays gone. I wanted to give you that update. Before we get back to volcanoes and everything, let me kind of just show you our space weather recently. We've had some interesting developments with our space weather. And we see, let me turn myself off really quick. So watch my cursor. You see here this G2 geomagnetic storm back on the 5th of May. You'll notice that is when Mayon Volcano first started to erupt. So we have Mayon Volcano erupting 5th of May, right as we have a G2 to G1 geomagnetic storm. And then if we go look at what's happened since, we see that things did quiet off. We're looking effectively at a bunch of different measures of the solar wind, which is this plasma wind that streams by the Earth at all times. And it varies day by day. So we see that it got really strong actually just in the past 24 hours. Normal field strength is 5. See as I go across the cursor there? The black number, that's for the total field strength in the magnetic field of the solar wind plasma. It's normally 5 nanotesla. Earth's magnetic field, for reference, on average is about 40,000 to 45,000 nanotesla. But it decreases in strength as you go out. So at some point, Earth's magnetic field is 5 nanotesla, the solar wind's 5 nanotesla, and they meet up. And now they're equivalent. But if you have the solar wind magnetic field all of a sudden become 20 nanotesla, it pushes in a lot deeper into Earth's magnetic field because of how magnetic fields drop off. So every time you double the distance, it goes down by 4 in strength. So going from 5 to 20 actually pushes it in quite a bit closer at the magnetopause. It pushes that magnetopause in closer to the planet. And there's just a natural flow from space and the solar wind and the magnetic field and the plastosphere into the exosphere and then into the thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere, and troposphere. So it influences us. And the atmosphere of the Earth is very, very thin. It's super, super tiny. I can pull up, in fact, an example of that. And let me just show you, because it really helps to see just how thin the atmosphere of the Earth is. Then you kind of start to get it. So here we are. This is a photo taken by Artemis 2, the Artemis 2 mission. And this is the dark side of the Earth. So you actually have the sun on the other side, but the reason why there's some light is because they put up a super high ISO, and that's why it's all grainy, the image. But there's still a little bit of light. The moon, it was during a full moon. So this is full moonlight right here. So we see Earth's atmosphere. We see the aurora right here. Check that out. Here's the aurora surrounding the planet. It was going off during a geostorm. We had a bunch of solar activity around the Artemis 2 launch. Here we see the atmosphere without the aurora. Look at that. I mean, it's super, super thin. We live in the thinnest layer of that atmosphere. So the space environment, the solar wind is coming in and basically hitting us head on. And people don't realize just how much that actually impacts us. At least I think most people underestimate that. So we see that all of a sudden we've been back up in more active conditions. The magnetic field of the solar wind wasn't really in a configuration to trigger a strong geomagnetic storm where Earth's magnetic field is oscillating, but it did get up quite a bit stronger to 20, and the velocity now has gone up. So we had two different things come in, and I can show you those back to back. First one here is this coronal hole high-speed stream that's flowing out of the sun, carries a unique magnetic field. That has impacted us because we're now in that high velocity solar wind structure where the velocity went up to about 600 kilometers per second. Right now it's about 550 kilometers per second. The other thing that combined with it, it was a joint impact, was that we had this plasma filament launched from the sun there on the 2nd of May, 3rd of May. So I'm pretty sure this is the combination because this is a very slow plasma filament launch. So it took its time and then it encountered that coronal hole high-speed stream structure, and the two combined together to create a stronger plasma wall of high density, which now has impacted us. So our solar activity right now isn't too crazy, but it has been elevated compared to just background conditions. And we're having all this volcanic activity right now, which is, you'd hope that the space weather would be quiet because all this can affect the Earth. It can charge up the global electric circuit. The dust and ash from the volcanoes, that's also starting to influence our atmosphere. If you get enough of these, you're going to get a lot of dust and ash and gas circulating through the atmosphere. Now, something else to mention is the fact that we have right now more cosmic energy coming in as well. So if we look at our neutron monitor data, this goes back all the way to 1964. We see our past 24 hours, it's effectively flat, okay? And we see our past 30 days right here. It's gone down from being about -2% to about 0.5%. So it's gone up 2.5% just in the past 30 days. And we see that very clearly if we look at our long time frame here, where our neutron flux was low, now it's started to go up. So we've hit at least one local bottom in our cosmic ray flux. Now these neutrons are a proxy, But when you have these high energy cosmic particles come in, they generate these neutron showers, which we then register. And when you have solar maximum, the magnetic field and heliosphere of the sun is stronger, so it routes more of these cosmic particles away. Here, as the solar heliosphere weakens, you get more cosmic ray flux, and therefore the neutron data goes up. So we are in this interesting position right now where we can still get strong solar activity, but in general, the cosmic energy is slowly increasing, and it'll be at its highest during solar minimum. For example, right here, you see solar minimum and will be about 10% higher than average, which let's just say is 0. And here is solar minimum for solar cycle 23 and 4 in between. And we see that we went up to 10, and now we're starting to go back up. So this is a pretty long-term thing to track. And it's not the most obvious thing, but these cosmic particles do influence the Earth in a variety of unique ways. There's been some research connecting them to like cloud cover and things of this nature. And in general, it all goes back to the atmosphere, which is the boundary between space and the inner Earth. Because the crust is already very thin compared to the size of the Earth, the crust is already thin. So the atmosphere is thin. The crust is thin, and then you have on both sides these super energetic places. You have the space environment, which is super conductive, and then you have the inner Earth environment, the mantle, which is also very conductive electrically. It's only the crust and the atmosphere which act as resistors in comparison. So that's very interesting to note. And yeah, I closed that out already. So if we go back to Google Earth here, turn this off, we can even kind of get a sense of this. So, I mean, here we can just see the edge of the Earth, right? That atmosphere is very, very thin. So, and there's a lot of plasma inside the Earth. So when you start to get this plasma to resonate differently, because plasma, the four-state matter, very highly energized and charged matter, it is able to move in interesting, unique ways. There's laboratory experiments showing plasma just going through walls and things, right? It doesn't behave like you may expect. It can, because most of matter is made up of actually empty space, right? Like this is just my microphone case here, but you have the nucleus of the atoms, and they have the electron clouds. The electrons are very low mass. They're spread out. The nucleus is hard, but there's these forces that stop nucleuses from running into each other. That's what nuclear fusion is all about, to overcome those forces to allow the nucleuses to fuse. But effectively, most of this is empty space. So plasma, because it's existing at that dimension, can just phase transition directly through something that, to us is like material and solid, and, there's no way I'm phase transitioning through the wall, but plasma can. So you have tons of plasma in the Earth. When we get these big earthquakes, we see earthquake lights come up. We've seen them from Japan, we've seen them from New Zealand, we've seen them from South America, we've seen them in North America. We see them best from land-based earthquakes at night. So we can see the glow of the discharge, the plasma discharge, land-based, because if it happens, if you get this big plasma discharge from the Earth under the oceans absorb that energy. Salt water is very conductive. That's another thing to keep in mind. So we do see evidence of this. And there's plasma in the atmosphere with aurora, right? We get this incredible aurora sometimes to just stream across the upper atmosphere. I mean, I saw a bunch of incredible aurora during my trip to Sweden back in February of this year, 2026. So we can see an example of that right here. And this is another example showing just how thin our atmosphere is. But these are all ribbons of plasma, charged particles. You have this solar impact coming in. It energizes particles in the local magnetosphere, which then rain down and then energize particles in the ionosphere. So you have plasma just right above the surface. You have plasma below the surface, you have plasma in space, you have plasma in the core, inner core, outer core, in the mantle, we have plasma within ourselves. So you really need to track plasma. And what's interesting about what's been happening in Western Pacific is that you'll notice that it's the Pacific Ocean. So this is superconductive. It's the biggest plate. The Pacific plate is the biggest plate. The ocean itself is very conductive, and you also have this huge ionosphere effectively that's not perturbed by surface land underneath. So you get a really interesting dynamic electrical circuit set up with the ionosphere in this region, and solar activity charges that up, and there is good physics showing that when you have ionospheric changes and disturbances, this could be like total electron content swings in the total electron content, like up or down, basically generation of plasma or deficiency in plasma, that can then exert isostatic forces on the plate and also induce microfractures via reverse piezoelectricity. So when you have this electric current moving through a material, that can generate mechanical strain. The same way that mechanical strain on a crystalline structure can generate electricity, which is regular piezoelectricity. So at certain scales, these forces are relevant, okay? Now the scale of the electric current generated from a traveling ionospheric current and a disturbance over an area, if you measure it just right there, it's probably not going to be that significant. But across an entire zone like this, you're building microfractures perhaps along the plate, and we're seeing increased volcanic activity, indicating that there is this surge of energy magma coming up from the upper mantle, bottom of the crust, basically the asthenosphere. But these roots for these volcanoes often go into even deeper into the upper mantle because that plate is subducting. In fact, here we have two plates, as I mentioned. That is kind of your sign that, yeah, there's more energy at play here. So we've been seeing these events. Specifically, I think there's this connection and we shouldn't ignore it. And that's the thing. I just want to, quickly, if I had to get on a podium just briefly, there's some people who are really upset with suggesting that the sun has an influence over geologic processes on Earth. And I don't know why they're so upset with it. Usually when I see this commentary, it's very obvious that these people haven't done research into this, because there's an abundance of research from an abundance of researchers and scientists across the board, different countries, universities, organizations, independent, professional, everything. It's clear that they haven't done the research, and they also maybe don't even know some of the source material. Like, you need to understand space weather and heliophysics, and you also need to understand geophysics and geology and so many different things that you need to connect together, and we don't have all the science. So it's really piecing together the puzzle. But right before Mount Dukono erupted, we had a 2.6 M-class flare charge up the ionosphere. The sun had yet to rise over Indonesia. The sun line was probably right about here when that solar flare hit. This was all in sunlight, so think of how much energy came in to charge up the ionosphere, and those electric currents also get induced into the ocean and into the oceanic crust and into the mantle, because as you go down, these electric currents get stronger and stronger. These can be millions of amperes in strength. So these can be gigaamperes in strength. The electric currents called tellurics flowing through the deep earth can total up to gigaamperes and probably also even like teraamperes. And the reason I say that is because Earth's magnetic field is generated by these electric currents. And 99% of it, minimum at least, is absorbed into the mantle. The actual magnetic force generated by these electric currents is then reabsorbed into the mantle because it is electrically conductive. And electrically conductive materials absorb magnetic fields. That's electromagnetism. So for it to absorb 99% of the magnetic field, the mantle, let's say, but you still have a field strength of 40,000 nanotesla at the surface, shows you that these electric currents are tremendously strong. And then as all of a sudden the Earth rotates and Indonesia comes into view of the sun and the sun rises, you had Dukono volcano erupt. And I can show you that video pretty quickly. This is pretty cool. So let me pull this up for you. I show this on my video on my Clips channel that I made late last night because that was a late night update. But let me pull this up again. And here it is. So this is our satellite imagery. And what we don't see is, you see actually it's a little darker at the beginning. That's just because the sun just rose about an hour earlier. So I showed that to you on the clip video. You can go to zoom.earth yourself to check it out if you want. But that's the eruption of Dukono. So the evidence is that here. Let's kind of boil it back down, okay? And we've talked about maybe how there's a bigger Earth shift that's coming for the Philippine Sea Plate, and that could result in a big earthquake and maybe a big tsunami as well. If it's shallow and the right sort of faulting, big tsunami is possible. But we know that the three most active volcanoes for Japan, Philippines, and Indonesia are all displaying signs of greater activity than normal. We can just look at that really quick here. We'll start with Mayon Volcano. This is the 5th of May, okay? This is quite serious. And we actually had new activity as well today. More pyroclastic flows have been racing down the slopes of Mayon Volcano. So I can show you that as well. Here we have that provided by Phi Helix. And we see the pyroclastic flows going down the slope of Mayon Volcano there. This is Phi Volx rather. So Mayon Volcano is still very active, clearly. Then we go to Mount Dukono here, just today, the 8th, this ash cloud reaching up to the stratosphere, showing how you can get that connection going out closer and closer to space at the same time. Space is getting closer to the surface. The Earth is also reaching out that way. Think of how much plasma is in this thing, right? Super heated ash and dust and volcanic emissions going up. You have a huge electrical flow through that. You often get volcanic lightning, right, with these sort of ash clouds. Lightning being a plasma discharge. So we're seeing from the three most active volcanoes on the Philippine Sea Plate, we're seeing big activity. So clearly there's energy coming up. We're having this connection with the ionosphere and more solar activity. We had 2 X-class flares just in the past month and multiple M-class flares. We're now getting more new M-class flares and a new active sunspot region is rotating into view. And we also have a big coronal hole that's about to show up. So we can look at that. I have this graphic here showing all 8 coronal holes going back to October of 2025. I'll turn myself off. And you see this is October, I believe that's October 8th. Yeah, we can even zoom in. October 8th right here. This is the 4th of November. Here is the 1st of December, the 28th of December. This is the coronal hole specifically that we're interested in, the one right on the equator. Here it is. It's actually its weakest here on the 25th of January, but then it re-strengthened. We see the 21st of February. That's within 24 hours of that big magnitude 7.1 that struck Malaysia ultra deep. So keep that in mind. And then we have this one right here. This is, this is March 21st right here, when we had a global seismic burst. We'll look at that data in just a second. And here we have the 17th of April when we had the magnitude 7.5 hit Japan. During that global seismic burst, we had 3 magnitude 7 earthquakes. Here it is, plus multiple magnitude 6s. Look at how they have this spacing here of about 1 solar rotation. That's because of the coronal hole. So we're coming up right now when we're expecting the next one. And we're just about 10 days away or so. I don't even think 10 days away. I think we're about 8 days away from that coronal hole reappearing. And these are known to generate earthquakes, as we can clearly see. I've explained this so many times. I'm not going to do this super in-depth in this live stream, but I just did it recently on my last video on my main page. So if you watch that, then you're up to date. So not only are we having this volcanic activity, we are also across the Philippine Sea Plate, we also are having this loading now by these coronal holes for many months and rotations that can drive big earthquakes because of how it influences the Earth energetic system. So this isn't necessarily something to fear or freak out about. I'm not saying this is the end of the world. I'm just doing my best to understand how the Earth operates at all the different scales. Because you can have a magnitude 5 earthquake, and for a local community, that can be destructive and a big deal. The eruption of Mount Dukono, 3 people died in that eruption just in the past 24 hours. They're right on the slope of the volcano, and that's what the official agencies have reported, 3 deaths from that. So I want to understand how the Earth was operating across all these different scales, and I think sometimes these events are bigger than smaller. We have a rich historic, geologic, and cultural history of big Earth changes that occur. Cataclysms, you could call them. So I'm not saying this is a cataclysm that's coming, but we do have these dynamics which I think a lot of people, quote unquote, sleep on them, like a geologist, for example, because we haven't seen it yet in real time. And often for people, seeing is believing. So we could very well get some big earthquake activity anywhere in this region. And you know, Japan is kind of the hot spot because the earthquake activity in Japan now 3 times has been linked up with this coronal hole. You had 6.4, 6.8 in November. Then the next rotation, you had a magnitude 7.6. And then with April, just recently, we had the magnitude 7.5. So that's 3 rotations now. Not 100% back-to-back, but pretty closely spaced together. You're only missing January, February, and March in between those. And that activity was spread out across other parts. In March, you had Vanuatu, you had Indonesia, you had one more location in this area for the magnitude 7. Oh, you had one in Fiji, Tonga. I think it was a 7.5 in Tonga. And then the other one that I mentioned in February was right here. So you see how this whole area has progressively been getting loaded and rupturing in time with this coronal hole. Now we're seeing the volcanic activity in the same area following these big earthquakes. We already know there's a connection between earthquake activity and volcanoes. The pressure wave, the sound wave, the shock wave from these earthquakes, these big ones, obviously hit all those magma conduits and lava tubes and more, and it shakes it, and that can cause there to be a surge, a degassing, an explosive surge upwards. So we're seeing that. So we're seeing all the evidence. The question is just, what is this telling us? What's the warning sign? Can we decipher in time? How close can we get to the bullseye in terms of forecasting the next big geologic event? That's really what one of my goals is, because I'm a big systems guy. I love to see the bigger picture. That's why I study the space environment, the planets, and more. And well, we have some planetary geometry coming up. So let me add that in, and then we'll get into our question and answer. So here we have Solar System Scope. This is a web app. It's also a paid app. But you'll notice here, today is the 8th, we have Mercury about to perform a superior conjunction. So some people call this a Mercury Cazimi, and you have 2 types of conjunctions for the inner planets, excluding Mars. So the planets closer to the Sun than the Earth, you can have an inferior conjunction like this, where it's Earth, Mercury, Sun, or even, for example, Earth, Venus, Sun. And look at this. Here we have a double inferior conjunction coming up in the end of October, November this year. So write that down, folks. when it comes, this Halloween is going to be lit, all right? I'm telling you right now, this Halloween is going to be pretty wild. And then you even have this Mars, Saturn, Neptune conjunction. It's not perfect, but you will have this really nice Jupiter-Pluto opposition. It's a little off right there, heliocentrically. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. If we go back to now, we see that we are going to have this superior conjunction of Mercury right around the new moon. See that? Look at that. Right as we have this superior conjunction on the 14th, then we have the new moon on the 15th, 16th, right there. And that is quite significant because the moon has a very strong gravitational impact on the Earth. The tides, of course, are very strong. So we have strongest tides during new moons and full moons. And these superior conjunctions are linked up with enhanced solar activity. That's the one thing I can really confidently say without any hesitation, because we see it time and time and time again. Big activity generally from the sun during the superior conjunction of Mercury. So the two of those linked up in time, I think, is going to be quite significant. This is this mid-May critical convergence period. We have the coronal hole on the sun, Earth facing at this time, and we have a big sunspot, which has blasted off X-class flares and multiple big explosions just recently, also going to be Earth center and direct right around the 15th, 16th of May. So there's probably something big is going to happen during then. I would be very surprised if we go through the middle of May, let's say from May 10th to the 20th, with nothing happening. If we don't have anything happen that's notable from the 10th to the 20th, I'm going to be flabbergasted. I'll be honestly pretty flabbergasted. So that is your update there going forward. And I'm just looking at this area very closely. Though we are getting some interesting stuff happening in North America too, but that's a whole separate video. I've done a ton of research on the seismicity of the western part of the US. It's a whole different video, so I'm not going to get into it today. But just a reminder, again, the Conscious Connections in-person event is going to be this 16th. So that's this energy can be worked with, right? It's not just about we see these critical convergences out of fear and we're worried that there could be some big Earth event. It's more just understanding where the Earth is with her energy, where the sun is with its energy, where the space environment is with the energy, how those converge and mingle together, and how that interacts with us. And when we get these sort of enhanced energetic periods, these convergences as I call them, and as others call them too, that's really when it behooves you to work with this energy, especially in community with other people. So the Qigong is going to be a great way to move this energy through your body and more. And then the overall event is going to be fantastic. Our 5 guest speakers is going to be very mind expanding. So yeah, if you are in Southern California, nearby Las Vegas, let's say, Arizona, or hey, you're like, know what, let's fly out, let's do it, baby, let's go all out, we can do it, it's no problem, whatever, right? You just really want to meet up. We're going to do more of these, but this is the first ever. We're going to do some special giveaways and everything. I'll be giving away some soil artwork canvas prints from my father. Dana will be giving away some books on plasma. It's going to be so fun. Make sure you sign up if you're interested, if it's resonating with you. You can go to earthevolution.com/store to check it out, and we have limited tickets available. So act sooner rather than later. Okay, let's get into a question and answer. And let us, I see some super thanks have come in. If you have a question that you want answered 100%, then make sure you attach it to a super thanks, because I have a separate list that shows them so I can access at any time. But we'll do a few questions from the general chat first. So please ask a question that's on topic and we will get into that. A good question here from Nick Browning, which is, did the last comet's tail load our atmosphere with new plasma? Well, I think that is, I think that's exactly what happened, actually. Here's just kind of a representative graphic of pan-stars flying by, but we actually had pan-stars directly hit Earth with its plasma tail. I can show you that. It's really quite remarkable. This is back in the middle of April. And so there is what I would call a plasma changeover event that occurred as a result of this. And how significant that is the big question. But here is the tail on Comet Pan-STARRS. And as you can see, that swept over Earth right there back around the 25th, 26th of April. So that's not that long ago. We received a big dose of interstellar plasma as a result. This comet coming in from deep, deep space. Our hypothetical Oort cloud, this repository reserve of these comets that exists well beyond the sun, gets flung in and then sweeps by and perfectly hits Earth with its gas and dust and plasma tail. Really quite remarkable. So in terms of the sun looking different lately, that I can't comment on. Everyone's eyes are different, the atmosphere, whatever. But yeah, we did get a dose of cosmic plasma as a result of this comet impacting Earth with its tail. Very, very cool. I care music is, do larger coronal holes create larger coronal mass ejections, or is the energy less concentrated due to the size? So a coronal hole doesn't trigger a coronal mass ejection. It has a high-speed stream of energy that goes out. And you can have interesting dynamics between sunspots and coronal holes that sometimes can, destabilize a sunspot to then launch out a coronal mass ejection. But a coronal hole is never launching directly itself a coronal mass ejection. Instead, you have this low density, high velocity, high speed stream at the beginning. At the front of it, you have this high density wall of plasma, because the high velocity plasma catches up and solidifies into a dense wall of plasma. That's what we just got hit with, by the way. That plasma filament and high speed stream combo created a stronger high density plasma sphere than normal. But if you have a sunspot, for example, let's say right near this, because this magnetic field is streaming out of space and the sunspot magnetic field loops back in on itself, sometimes the two connect, and that can cause there to be a bit of a destabilization, then a boom, you get a coronal mass ejection launched out. So the bigger coronal holes take up more area. They probably brush up against more sunspots, but not directly though. To answer your question, not directly. And a comment from Valiant, which is, I don't get how there are so many ignorant people underestimating all these factors. Yeah, I would just say that most people only take an earth science class in like 8th grade. They never do a proper geology class. That's really kind of the foundation for this, is geology, okay? And then you kind of expand out from there, because geology is the study of the earth. And if you just study the space environment, let's say you're an astrophysicist just looking at galaxies, well, you probably don't have too much understanding of the earth, okay? You may think you do, but it's probably one of these Dunning-Kruger effects, where just because you think your PhD in astrophysics makes you think that you can kind of actually be a PhD in geology too. We're all susceptible to like these effects of thinking that we know more than we do. So I just want to very clearly state for myself that I try to be as evidence-driven as possible, and not all evidence is in a research paper yet. That's the thing. A lot of evidence is, there's evidence all around us. It's called observation. It's what made Leonardo da Vinci such a genius, is that he just paid attention to his environment. Newton is sitting under the tree and the apple bonks him. He's like, oh, maybe gravity exists, right? That's simple observation. It's not like Newton found a paper describing gravity. He wrote the damn thing. So that's really what this all boils down to. You need to start with the study of the earth. And then from there, everything else starts to connect in. And it really is this whole cosmic understanding, because how did the earth form? How did the sun form? This obviously is going to determine the geology of the earth now, because what I look the way I am because I was once, the child of my father and mom and their DNA. So it carries on, transmutes and changes, but you need to understand the creation. And that's where that astrophysical perspective and understanding comes in. And then our understanding of the atmosphere is just one small component of the Earth. Understanding of, let's say, like a comet or a meteorite coming in, right? How is that going to affect the Earth? These are all connected together. But most people just don't study these things. And then they may have entrenched beliefs because the modern scientific system in general tells you that a lot of things are fake and not real. Even though the burden of proof to disprove it's on them, they haven't. And in fact, there's a lot of research that's coming out all the time proving these things, but they discount it because it's fake and it's not real. It's a circular logic that's applied. But if you pay attention yourself and open up your eyes and make the observations, you're like, oh, there's a lot more to this. I see at least a little glimpse into the genius of God, right? And God's in everything. Some people they talk about God, like God's a creator, then there's this creation. Like creation isn't imbued with God. Creation is God. Everything is God. So you have this central, and this is going beyond, now we're going philosophical, but you have this greater aspect to everything. How is it all created? Where do we all come from, right? How is it all connected? Everything's connected together in some small ways, sometimes in big ways, synchronistically. That's the beauty of life and our existence, is that we get to play and discover all this stuff. So it's really quite incredible. At least I take great enjoyment from all of this. Next question, we'll go to our super thanks questions now. And one here from Susan, thank you for the super thanks, is what are your thoughts on the central sun photon belt theory? Well, to answer that question, let's go to solar system scope. And to do that, we're just going to zoom out, because if in this application, if you zoom out, eventually you get to the interstellar scale. Here we're at 10 light years. We see these other stars start to appear near us. If we go out to the 100 light year scale, you see even more stars. So we're in a there's quite a lot of stars surrounding us. Stars, galaxies, they all cluster together, by the way. I talked about them in a recent deep space interview or live stream. But look here. Here we have the Pleiades. This is that central sun idea. Because you have, this is our closest star cluster, most active, dozens and dozens, I think actually hundreds of stars, 444 light years away. And there is quite a bit of astronomical evidence that there is this larger movement and rotation around this local nodal point. Of course, there's other star clusters as well. So we see them here, and they're all moving and clustering together because in general, stars cluster together, galaxies cluster together into these superfilaments. And we are in what's known as the Gould belt, in fact, G-O-U-L-D. So we have this, and we also just see it at the Milky Way scale, right? Look, you have this clustering of stars and star clusters in these spiral arms. So yeah, now in terms of the photon belt, photon is light. And light travels at the speed of light. So, the idea of using a photon belt to describe it, it really doesn't make sense, though I think I know what they're getting at. But in terms of a great central sun, it's more about what's kind of like the interstellar barycenter, that everything is swirling and rotating around. That's kind of where I think about it. So thank you for your super thanks. And Sonia, thank you for the very generous super thanks. Many thanks for being such a great person, scientist, intuitive, and getting us all involved. You're quite welcome. Doing my best to understand what is happening on our planet and just, our universe and galaxy and everything. We are all cosmic citizens. Whether we realize it or not, we all have the same punch card and equal voting rights, you could say, at the cosmic level, because it's all consciousness. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a member for 4 months. Shurzy and Solar Independent Utility System person, thank you from Solar Independent Utility Systems Manual. So thank you for that super thanks. It's appreciated. And Geraldine, thank you for super thanks. Yeah, I mean, we hope everything's going to be okay, but there has been a tremendous amount of activity in Asia, just in general also. I mean, let's say you're walking around on the island of Mount Dukono, you wake up, you're drinking your coffee, you're kind of still rubbing your eyes, and all of a sudden you see this giant ash cloud going up. Yeah, that could be scary, okay? I don't think we should bury our head in the sand as it relates to these things. Someone recently was like, all you're trying to do is like freak people out. It's like, I'm literally just reporting on the fact that we had a huge volcanic eruption. Like, should people not be aware of that? Not, I mean, if it doesn't concern you and you just really don't care at all, then hey, just don't watch the video. But, you know, a lot of people actually want to know what's actually happening on our planet rather than all this fake junk news and slop that they feed you, right? So that's really the purpose and point here. But yeah, these things can be perhaps scary, and it's good to be, but that's a mindset. But beyond that, it's good to be aware of where the Earth is. And this is all an educational thing too, because by everything's microcosm, macrocosm. So by learning about the Earth, you're also learning about yourself, and you're also learning about the cosmos as a whole. That's at least what I believe. And I think it's been really credible. Geraldine, thank you for another super thanks. Do you think Mount Baker in Washington is acting up? I would have to look at Mount Baker's earthquake activity. I've heard some reports that Mount Baker has been more active or something, but there's always people saying things like this, and often it's not backed up by data. So I don't know what is exactly happening with Mount Baker, but if we look at the past, right here, the past 14 days for quakes, magnitude, and depth over time, we're only seeing 2 magnitude 2 to 3 earthquakes, which is fairly large for a volcano like Mount Baker, and they're fairly shallow, being 5 kilometers down at the deepest for this one there. But I think right now Cascadia is fine. We're seeing the activity with, we're really seeing activity in Asia. So I'm not really concerned about like the Cascadia volcanoes at this moment in time. But the moment that changes, I'll let you know, right? And we have a question here from Alyssa. Ceres is transiting near the ecliptic plane, joining the superior conjunction of Mercury. This is significant in my opinion. What are your thoughts? Oh yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I noticed that myself last night, and I just simply forgot to mention it today. But if we look here, you'll see that in this alignment with the Earth, the Moon, and Mercury, we also have the dwarf planet Ceres, which is about 60 to 80% of the mass of the asteroid belt. So it's quite significant, and it's 1,000 kilometers across. The density and mass overall of Ceres isn't that high, but it's this interesting intermediate between Mars and Jupiter. And it has about a 4.6-year orbital cycle, so that's very interesting. And it's also taking place with this alignment. So we have an Earth, Moon, Sun, Mercury Ceres alignment that's occurring right around the middle of May. And I think that's really important. And just a final up here from Marion. You are so right. We all need to know what dangers of natural disasters could occur in our area of the Earth. It is odd that our leaders do not give the Earth the respect they should. Yeah, if you're so consumed with the materialistic dimension, then, and you're focused on, I just need resources and we're going to fight for oil and like all these crazy things, right? Then yeah, you're not paying attention or even cognizant of how things could change very quickly. One big, let's say Cascadia does go, we get Mount Rainier to blast off. There's tons of people living in that blast radius. The lahars and everything going down could be super destructive, and that could be very, very bad news. So, and actual like economic fallout and like destruction and death and everything. That's not what we want. But yeah, these things, the Earth is fundamentally in charge. And if she needs to shake us off like some fleas off a dog, she could do so very easily. Or the cosmic environment could do so. The sun could do a super flare. Maybe that would do it for the tech centers and AI and everything, satellites. That would incinerate them. Maybe we get some big comet impactor to come in. Time to reboot the system, folks. Not going to happen that often. I'm not saying it's happening tomorrow. I really hope it doesn't happen in this lifetime, but it's possible. Certainly possible. And maybe actually a big super flare would be the best, because there's ample evidence that we're fine during a super flare. We had Miyake events occur in the year 700, the year 1000, and I think like 1300 AD, and we don't see any particularly noteworthy account of civilization collapse or anything. We have biologic hardware that can work with these energies. Solar impacts and geomagnetic storms, they do interact with our heart. People that have heart issues can have higher rates of stroke and infarctions and things of this nature, arrhythmias and all this during a geostorm. So we do have that data, but in general, our biology is uniquely capable of dealing with this high energy flux. If we connect to the ground with our feet and we're grounded, we're earthing, we can discharge this energy and more. But let's say a silicone chip, big high power transmission line, satellite in space, they're not going to handle it so well. They won't be able to ground or decharge. So maybe it would be for the best. I don't know. I'm more so in the camp of just like what will happen. And I trust in God and in the universe, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to live my life to A, enjoy life, and B, to do my best to help others, to help myself, help my family, help my friends, and the world at large. These are my simple philosophies. And I would hope that more people will live them. I'm doing everything I can to reduce the kleshas of greed and arrogance and ignorance and all this stuff. And we have a super thanks here from Chiron Phoenix, which is, I want to thank you so much for starting to discuss true sky, sidereal astrology more and more. I believe recognizing the real placements of the planets is a critical part of the current awakening. Yeah, I'll just kind of give like one poignant example, I feel like, of that. So we'll load up Stellarium and I can show you what I'm talking about. And I'm more into true sky because there's still deviations in like falsities or sidereal astrology. Like they don't have the constellation sizes as far as I know, true to size. So it's really just about just like what is, or like living sky astrology, true sky, just like what it actually is right now. But if we go here, this is just understanding our astronomical environment. That's all it is, folks, okay? So it's nothing crazy, it's no voodoo. This is the oldest science in existence. It's the oldest science in existence. If you pay attention to it, you see it reaffirm itself over and over and over. But if we go here, and we'll go back a little bit. So here we have Saturn. There's a lot of talk about Saturn in astrology, whatever you want to call it, right? A lot of talk about Saturn and how it's going to bring some detriment to your life or whatever. And I personally just got out of my Saturn return and also a Saturn-Sun opposition. These are longer time frames. So Saturn return was a few years ago, but the Sun-Saturn opposition is finally loosening up. And with like traditional Western astrology, it's now, oh, well, it's in this house, it's impacting this sector, and it's doing all these things. It's like, listen up. I don't see houses here. I just see a constellation. We all right now have Saturn in Pisces. That's it, okay? Now, compared to like where sunrise and sunset was, you can calculate houses, whatever. We're all dealing with Saturn and Pisces. That's the current energy. And that's going to be there for a while. We're all dealing with Neptune and Pisces. That's the current energy. It's going to be there for a while. So some of these systems now have almost become too personalized to your detriment. And often it's less about blessings and more about these detrimental transits and energies and stuff. So I'm really just focused on seeing where the energies are very collective in scale, and then in other spots where they're very individual. For example, if you're born right when the sun was rising on the Pleiades, then maybe something conjuncting over the Pleiades is going to impact you more directly than someone else because that was right where the horizon was, or that's right where the setting horizon was, or maybe the moon was on it, things like this. So understanding it from a blueprint of that nature is important, and learning to differentiate between what is individual and what's more collective, I think, is really important right now, because we can create these loops in our brain that then manifest the thing that we don't necessarily want. So, but undeniably, Saturn's in Pisces. That's just what it is right now. So clearly, that's the collective energy for that right now. And that's something that we're all working through. So thanks for that super thanks. I am going to sign off here at this point. So thank you all so much for watching. Again, just one more reminder, the Conscious Connections in-person event this next Saturday, May 16th, San Diego. It's going to be awesome, 150 people. You can finally talk to anyone in that room, I'm sure, about any of these things. And you are going to have a great time with it. It's going to be incredible. We have some special guest speakers. One of our moderators who was in the video earlier, Bree, she is going to be a guest speaker. We have activations by JJ. She's going to be a guest speaker. And one of Dana's friends who is also into all this, she'll be a guest speaker. We're going to have 5 amazing guest speakers, Dana and I, Q&A, bonfire, qigong, social hour, photo ops, just in general, a good heart open space for all of us to connect. It's going to be life-changing. Hope to see you all there. Tickets available on my website, earthevolution.com, and also via Dana on her stand store, which there's a link to on my website, but she also, just go to her socials. She's been promoting the event as well. So really, really excited for that. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date on everything that's happening with the Earth energetically, earthquakes, volcanoes, severe weather, geomagnetic storms, solar activity, space weather, planetary alignments, interstellar and cosmic forces, consciousness, community, everything. We do it here. Love to see you around. Thank you all for your support. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. The energy in mid-May is going to be electric, so keep that in mind. I'm sure it's going to have a wonderful positive manifestation for many people, but we could see some significant Earth events during that time frame, so make sure that just you know your own local risk hazards for natural disasters and more for your area, and be prepared. That would be my final take-home closing message. So hope to see you all in San Diego for any of those watching that live in the area or want to make the trip, and more information is on that webpage. Thanks, have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.